Why would you want to be in school in the summer? You should be on Coney Island bird dogging chicks.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Underrated Podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss the films that we feel are underrated or perhaps underappreciated, or even ones that have slipped under the radar and passed most people by. This show is a collaboration of friends, and together we are the Undercast Company. I'm Ariel, and I'm joined by...
Fred.
We're on a circle today, so...
Well, I was going to say you could introduce us, but yeah.
Right, we have Fred Torres, we have Alan Torres, and we got Derek Midduff.
It's your boy.
So today we are going to be talking about, it's kind of a funny story, a 2010 comedy drama adaptation of a 2006 novel by Ned Vizzini.
Vizzini? The first letter is a V, right?
Vizzini. Oh my gosh.
Vizzini.
Ned Vizzini by the same name, about a NYC 16-year-old pre-professional high school student who unknowingly commits himself to a hospital psych ward after he contemplates suicide due to the growing stresses of growing up. In his week-long stay, he finds friendship, love, and himself, and gains a new understanding of what life and actually living means. This film stars Keir Gilchrist, Emma Watson, Viola Davis.
Emma Roberts.
Emma Roberts.
Emma Roberts. Oh my gosh.
Emma Roberts.
Emma Roberts.
Viola Davis. Roberts, all the same.
How about
Viola Davis, Lauren Graham, Jim Gaffigan, Zoe Kravitz, and in a role you would not expect him in, but he does fantastic, Zach Galifianakis. So it's pretty interesting that we're talking about a movie that came out at the beginning of the last decade when we're recording this on the first day of the new decade, 2020. So yeah, it's New Year's Day today that we're recording.
I am hung over.
So overall, guys, what did you guys think?
Well, I guess if I could go first, sometimes you need to leave things dead in their decade is what I'm going to say about this movie. It was cool for what it is. So it's got its moments, but overall, like I don't know, man. It would pull me in and then toss me right out. I don't know. I mean, it's I don't know what to say. Like I'm torn. On one side, I want to like it. On another side, I kind of don't. I don't know. How do you feel about it, Derek?
I actually liked it a whole lot. I actually had the movie like on DVD for a while. Like I won it and just never got around to watching it, but always kind of meant to. I guess I just related to a lot of like the things in it. Personally, I thought that it had some really interesting themes about like growing up and kind of dealing with this stuff like depression and, isolation and feeling like all this stress and stuff. And because I kind of related to the main character where, like I have had times where I've gone through some stuff like that. And then he's around people who are much more like have much worse problems than him. And so I can kind of relate to that too, because I know people who do have like legitimate, have gone through some legitimate things like this. And I don't know, I think it's got some really interesting stuff in it. I really like the core theme of how it's just kind of like art fights depression. I think some of my favorite parts were when it got really surreal, and it kind of like when they had that the song when they did the karaoke, and it was
pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And it was much more like there was a couple moments like where the film just became a lot less of just kind of like a straightforward movie and kind of was much more representational or less representational and more abstract, and those were the best parts of the movie. There was things I didn't love about it too. Like I felt like the female characters weren't like really that strong. They were just kind of like there to support the male characters. But Emma Roberts still does a really good job, and so does Zoe Kravitz. But overall, pretty solid movie. Yeah.
Alan?
I liked it. I thought it was a cute movie. I just finished watching it with my girlfriend like 20 minutes ago, and we kind of talked about it and we're like, yeah, it was cute. One of the big things like I kind of go with Derek too. Like a lot of stuff I can relate to, especially with like mental illness and all that. I mean, I studied all that, and I can relate to a lot of things where like you feel like you just want to end it all because it'll make life or it'll just make things kind of go away. But I like that he kind of grew and learned. Like, hey, there are people who have it worse, but there's also outlets to help you. Like I've always been very like, hey, if you need to talk about something, talk about it with somebody and all that. But I mean, there was nothing I didn't not like it. I just thought it was good. Like I was like, cool. I watched it. There was nothing really I was like, oh my God, I love this or that. But mainly one of the biggest things though, what me and my girlfriend said were, um, I don't see this being a cult movie or anything, but I can definitely see it being a movie that they show in high school in like a high school psychology class. Like how they always show Remember the Titans and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I could definitely see this being like a movie for class. Like you can show students and you can analyze it and be like, oh, well, this person's going through that, this person's going through this, write a paper about and all that. But that was a solid movie. I mean, well, I guess my only gripe is, yeah, Emma Roberts. She's like I've recently like really enjoyed her stuff, especially with Scream Queens. So yeah, I guess I kind of agree with that. Like she could have been. She's such a great actress. I think they could have used her a little bit more, like give her a little bit more in her role. But yeah, I think that's the only like shitty part is that they underutilize her. But yeah,
Yeah.
solid.
Yeah. So for me, so this was my choice. Choice for the podcast, and for me, it is when I rewatching it today, and it is one of my favorite movies that like kind of deals with mental health, and it's just for me, it's just the subtlety and like kind of like the thought process of especially the main character of Craig that I had been able to relate to. I have problems with anxiety and depression, and mainly like it did like when I was in school, it did stem from school and from expectations and from family stress and stuff like that. Even though Craig didn't have too much family stress, he even mentions that. But for me, it's rewatching it today. Even it was just like these subtleties and this like artistic way, like you because later on he becomes like an artist and stuff like that, and like you kind of see like through his like daydreams and like fantasies and all that he has always had that trait in him, and it's kind of just like for me a movie about evaluating all these different forms of mental health, and like even like touching on the stigma of mental health issues, and like for example of like being accepted, and it being seen as like either taboo or as an oddity, and like but bringing a light to it, to like that actuality. It's like it is an illness, but it is something that it just is a part of a person, and they could you just it's something to be accepted and to um you know go and seek help for if you need it. And yeah, for me, I kind of like I it, the for the I could see your point with Emma Roberts' character not being as well defined, but for me, I think it's just in the subtlety of her actions that speak very much volumes. Like for the first time that she introduces herself to Craig of the games of questions that we'll talk about later. Just the first question being like, "Do you think I'm ugly?" So it's kind of like it speaks to like a deeper layer of her character, and I think
Yeah.
those like those things are integrated in this movie, and things aren't as self at self value in this movie, just like these characters are in mental health is like it's always deep, buried deep within the person. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, that's how mental illness is. People bury it deep because, like you said, it's very much stigmatized. And I think Viola Davis said it. Like she's like, don't be embarrassed about it. Like, when you tell people you got diabetes, you're not embarrassed. It's like that. Which I was like, yeah, I agree with that. Because if you're sick, you want to get help. There's nothing wrong with it. But
Yeah,
and
no,
I do like how you said, sorry, but I like how you said that, with Emma Roberts' character. I'm saying more they underutilized her as an actress. Like they could have given her more, but you're right about the subtlety because, she could have had body dysmorphia, and that's why she like cut herself, like which is a big, mental illness for a lot of people her age, girls and guys, just guys, excuse me, guys aren't as vocal, but like, body dysmorphia is a big thing. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of subtleties, and a lot of time people with mental illness they don't open up. So maybe that's what the movie was trying to do, was be like, hey, this is how it is, and she's not saying much about it because of how she feels. But yeah,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think it does a really good job of kind of like taking these issues that people are, very afraid to talk about, embarrassed or whatever of, and giving a voice to these people and presenting some characters that they can relate to. Because, definitely with Emma Roberts' character, I know some people who are like that are just like incredible people that just have the worst self. They just think they're worthless, and I'm just like, no, you're amazing. Or like I really, related to like the main character like as a 16-year-old in a lot of ways because he's terrified of girls. And when I was 16, that was my biggest thing was like, I just was like, oh my gosh, how am I ever supposed to talk to a girl ever? And, I mean, that really captures how it feels to be like an anxious kid that age. You don't understand anything but really, it tells you, there's some things that'll help, getting help professionally, talking, having friends, honestly, like this movie, he makes like a really good friend and Zach Galifianakis and other friends. And then also, like I was saying before, like working on your art, like art is so good at fighting depression. And it's something that's always, helped me in the past when I've been feeling down, like working on my writing or whatever it might be. So I think this movie is really responsible with handling a lot of that stuff. It doesn't feel sloppy or lazy or like it's taking advantage. It feels like it's tackling these very big issues in a very responsible way. Just want to say one thing real fast. So I was going to bring this up at the beginning. We sound kind of weird, guys, because a couple of us are recording on our phones. We're not all together like we usually are. Also, my voice is a little shot too, so just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah. So going off of that, like I want to get into like these individual characters because this is very much like any kind of like kind of not a psych textbook, but this is a case study of mental health, but mainly a case study and a character study on all these different characters that represent multiple spectrums of different mental health issues. So, what do you guys think of particularly like the main three characters we could say of Craig and Zach Galifianakis' character and Emma Roberts' character? So, I mean, we touched on Emma Roberts, but what about Zach Galifianakis? Because for me, he definitely, and it was a fantastic performance. Like when I first watched it, I wasn't. This was like after watching The Hangover, of course, and Due Date, and like these Zach Galifianakis movies where he's just a crazy, wacky guy, stoner or whatever. So for me, coming in and watching it and seeing this kind of like different side of Zach Galifianakis, it was very, very refreshing, and it showed
Yeah,
that
he's incredible.
he's
He's
a
incredible in
really
this.
good character. And like speaking of like going off of also on that like surface value, we never really get his full story, and like I found that very interesting. And he turned out to be a very like the most complex character out of all of them, even till the end. Like we don't know exactly like and I think that's just like it is very. He was very much like a incredible character in my opinion.
Yeah, no, he was great. I think he really does the thing. It's like the Robin Williams thing where it's like
Oh,
he seems like the
I was definitely getting Robin Williams vibes from him from
yeah,
this movie. Yeah, for sure.
like the happy, like the very like happy guy who like seems like he doesn't have a care in the world, but is just like always like there for everybody and just kind of like bouncing around and being sarcastic and fun, but like he has a deep, deep sadness inside. And I thought he like that's such a difficult role to pull off, and he did it so incredibly well. Like Zach Galifianakis for this movie, like nobody ever talks about this performance, but it's honestly incredible. Zach Galifianakis is an amazing actor in this. You know, he never doesn't really get times to like show off his acting chops like this. So it was really another side to his acting that I'd never seen before.
Yeah, no, I agree on that. His performance was great. I mean, it's really good. I think the not knowing a little bit maybe of his all of his story kind of gives it a little bit more. How can I put it? Like some kind of depth without knowing, because it really interests you in a story. I mean, if you would have got the full exposition, maybe who knows how you would have felt. Like it could make you feel indifferent. But having a little bit of mystery in it, because you see, it's almost like he projects happiness on helping other people solve their problems, keeps him away from solving his own problem. And that really, you really see that come through with his character, that he's constantly making other people happy. He's constantly being aloof and doing jokes and ha ha ha, just so he can abstain from having to solve whatever issues he has with his own family, because he does care about his wife and he does care about his kid. And there's something going on there, and you don't exactly know 100% what, but it starts to make you think like some kind of mental illness issue that he has. He's got to be there, and his wife doesn't want him to be there with his kid because of those issues. It makes you think that, but then again, you can also interpret it however, you know, maybe you'll see it in a different way. But it kind of keeps you on the focus of other stuff that he's doing to keep those things away. And I think that's why it works not to know all his problem, because he himself isn't telling you his issues. It seems like all the characters here are telling you the issues of kind of like what they were going through as they go through, and that makes sense. You know, you're not going to just open your whole life story to somebody when you've got problems. You only let them in when you feel like letting them in, and I think that works with it. That he lets everybody in as far as he wants to, and that's it, and that's where it's going to stop, and that's normal, and those are some of the things that I thought were really good with the movie, that I really really enjoyed.
Yeah, he would rather, you know, help Craig figure out being able to talk to girls, but he's not going to tell Craig anything about his daughter and his suicide attempts and stuff like that, because he's just deflecting. Yeah. And he's a helper, but he won't let people help him.
Exactly.
So do you think that when he does leave at the end without talking to Craig, do you think that's kind of like him kind of like just for like a short amount of time, like just thinking of himself selfishly, like or do you think it's like it is another way of him like just deflecting?
I was honestly scared he was going to kill himself.
So that's going into that. I kind of like misremembered this when I watched it, and I thought that I think I kind of mixed it in with like, if you ever seen that movie 28 Days with Sandra Bullock, it's about rehab and stuff like that. Movie. Yeah. Oh no.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
28 weeks or something.
28. No, it's 28 days. No, it is 28 days. But anyway, so like there's like a character that like had left the rehab but then comes back because he overdosed again. But so I think I kind of mixed those up, because I kind of thought when I was rewatching this that Zach Galifianakis did something, that he did end up staying in the hospital, because I just remember that like Craig is kind of like down about something about him, but it ended up being like, oh no, he did leave. So yeah, but I did, even rewatching it because of that reason, I had that feeling that he was going to try to do something again, especially like in that last scene where everybody's dancing and he kind of like doesn't join in for the first time, it seems. I think it's because of him, maybe kind of like he is scared of the unknown, but he's might be like more willing to fight for it, maybe because of Craig, because of that, you know, because he has helped him so much, and yeah, it's very interesting. Like he's like a tough character, but also like very inviting to others. So
yeah.
So Alan, what do you think
about his character?
Or about I guess his character, any character per se.
Well, I mean, you guys kind of already said pretty much what I thought. But yeah, my biggest worry was at the end that he probably was gonna attempt again,
Mhm.
because a lot of the time, sometimes you hear about people who, like, things might change for the better, and then they kind of get cold feet and go, you know what, I'm not ready. And that was my fear. I was like, oh my God, please don't end this movie with him being like, oh, he killed himself or something like that. But I guess they left it more open for you to be like, oh, maybe he
Yeah,
just left because he's like, hey, you know what, I'm done. I just want to leave this behind and focus on my future and take the next step. I mean, it's ambiguous, so hopefully
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
everything panned out.
I want to say that I took it more of he was finally like self-reflecting and he
Mhm.
wanted to put some change into it, is what I thought. Just because the movie itself at that point, like towards the end, it seems to give you like a happy ending for everybody. So I just was under the assumption of like, oh, this guy's going to, he's finally taking a look at what's going on instead of trying to push it to the side.
But yeah, for me, I think I enjoyed like the overall. I enjoyed the story and the message that it brought. Like especially at the end, I was getting misty eyed when like the montage at the end, and I think like going off of what Fred was saying, I think it was meant to be hopeful. Like him not
Yeah.
Yeah.
and like showing up and talking, actually saying goodbye to Craig. I think it was the start of the beginning of like that kind of like happy ending, and it pointed like it's definitely like a really great message for like people who have depression and anxiety of that like it can get better, like even though whatever aspect or on the spectrum or of like sadness you're on, basically you can get better, things will get better, you can change and not be afraid of that, and it would just like I was getting misty eyed like because especially when the final words of him like I just like just to breathe and live, and yeah it was definitely I don't know if it's because like of how I feel right now in my life, but it was definitely something that I needed to a message I needed to hear, and I think if especially for people who are in that kind of situation or in feeling that stress or feeling that anxiety, it's definitely a movie that they should check out, and it might like for me it might give you insight into yourself.
Yeah. No, for sure. I really wanted to read the book after
Oh yeah, me
I
too.
saw
I
it because
need
it was so this story was so interesting. I'm really I never did, but I might at some point, just because I thought it was a really really compelling, well told story that I would like to revisit in another format for sure.
yeah, now with that montage, I'm wondering if it is kind of like it might. I'm wondering if the book it might be kind of like fictional realism maybe, because
Mm.
like in the montage it shows that he did write a book, and it is called It's Kind of a Funny Story. So I'm
Huh.
wondering if
That's
the
Is
book
it
itself and the writer, it's kind of like a fictionalization of his experiences. So I definitely have been wanting to check out the book since I watched this for the first time. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Good suggestion. Though I think this
Mhm.
was a good suggestion for a movie.
yeah, and I really want
Yeah.
his artwork. I really
Yeah.
love that idea of like of drawing like people as cities, and especially the drawing that he does for Danny. I was or not not Danny.
It's
Bob,
Max's
Bobby,
character, Bobby.
Bobby,
Yeah.
yeah, for Bobby. It was just like perfect how he talked about it, because like Bobby's like, oh, it's very crowded, and he's like, yeah, just like you, or very messy, and he's like, yeah, just like you, but it's under construction. So like, yeah, I definitely would love like kind of an artwork like that, like
Yeah.
just based on that.
Yeah, it's really really cool artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just want to say I looked it up. It looks like Vizzini, the author, did suffer some depression and did spend some time in a psych ward in his 20s. So yeah, it looks like this is semi autobiographical, at least inspired by some stuff that he went through. But yeah, so you guys want to delve into why we think this one might be a little underrated, because it didn't make very much money. It only had a limited release, only made like $6.5 million at the box office, only has a 56% Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know. Why do you guys think that this one was not super well seen or received?
I think for me it was definitely like turn of the decade kind of thing. It might have like suffered. It is a little bit better on IMDb with like a 7.1, but I feel like it might have just went under the radar because it kind of seemed it's like an indie film.
Yeah. Yeah, only
It
had
was
limited release.
limited release. I think I come across it like from a trailer, but I didn't actually watch it in theaters. I think I watched it when it came out on DVD. So yeah, I think that was one of the reasons why it went under the radar. Definitely the source of like the material itself of depression and anxiety and stuff like that. Like in 2010, even though like now it is a bit more like delved into in media. It wasn't so much back then, and
Yeah, a little ahead of its time, this movie.
Yeah, it's very much at the start of the breaking of the stigma of mental health that we're barely like even that was a start. We're still barely seeing like the effects of change and a lot
this
of
is way
more
before like
change.
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yeah, a lot more change needs to be made for that. I mean,
Yeah.
mental health is definitely something that's very much still like jumped over in any kind of conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's definitely probably like people don't want to see it. It's because it seems like it's just kind of like a funny, fun comedy, but like it is dealing with this really deep social issue about depression and stuff like that. And I don't know if that to like a general audience is something that sounds super appealing. I don't really understand why critics didn't rate it better. Maybe it's because it's like a teen movie and they're not always the best received. I don't know. And it was in 2010, like you were saying, the turn of the last decade, there was a lot of really good movies coming out, so it just kind of like got overlooked by everything else that was coming out. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. See, like that's what I was saying, where I got a little torn with the movie. The movie itself is really good, and the subject matter is really good. And I feel like if the comedy was, and it's not like that's why I'm saying like I guess stuff in itself. If it was a little bit maybe more serious, I think it would have probably got some awards and things like that. Like the movie's really good. It's a solid movie. But I feel like maybe some of the humor takes a little away from the seriousness, maybe in critics' eyes. Mm-hmm. You know how sometimes comedies tend not to be always their best pick.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, if you say it's a comedy, and then let's be real, you add Zach Galifianakis, and at the time with The Hangover, with all these movies, you just tend to think of like, oh, it's that kind of sense of humor. Oh, it's going to be like that. And so some people probably like, if I didn't like The Hangover, I'm not going to like another comedy with him.
Yeah,
and those are those things that like I said, the comedy in it is good. I mean, and the happiness is good. Like it's like you took two genres and put them together, and it works for the movie. But at the same time, it's where I get torn that like you could have had like this very serious drama movie in itself, and you could have also had like the teenage youngster like happy-go-lucky, because you get that happiness in the end. You have that comedy in there, but you also have the seriousness, and that's why I'm like, it's good. I like it. I really do enjoy it. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think people should watch this movie, but where I'm torn with it is that like, and I think that's why some people are torn with it, to give it the scores that they kind of give it. I mean, instead of taking it in face value for what it is, a good movie, you start to generalize it because you put the title comedy, you put this or that in it. You start to think of like, oh, well, it should be ha 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 the whole time, or it should be more drama. And I'm missing one or the other. And
yeah,
it's messed up that it gets scores like that, but I mean that's sometimes how it goes.
Yeah, that's an understandable take on it. For me, in my opinion, I think it having that gateway of comedy is kind of like makes it more approachable topic. Like once you give it a chance, of course. Like you
exactly.
said, I think it actually pays off, and like it
it helps you. It helps you digest this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It does, because there's some serious subjects. But like I was saying, it's the comedy part and Zach Galifianakis part that I think people equate to. Oh, this isn't going to be a serious movie, or it's not going to be something I'm going to like.
Mhm.
it's going to end up being some kind of weird hangover type jokey about this or that. I mean, because at the time he did have that kind of somewhat stigma, I want to say, with him, that it were all funny and stuff, like Between Two Ferns and things that he does. He's funny, he's hilarious,
Uh-huh.
but it's that stigma of like this is kind of comedy he does. So when you see him in a movie, you just assume that's the comedy I'm going to
Yeah.
get.
Yeah, and I think he hasn't really done anything like this in a long time or since then. So I really hope that
Didn't he have
that
a TV show?
oh
hasn't he
yeah,
been doing
yeah,
TV
he has that it's not clowns. He's kind of like a clown. It's
Yeah, it's kind of like I don't know what it's
yeah,
called,
but
but
I
yeah.
don't think it is like this. But I think it is more of the comedy that he's like known for.
Mhm.
But I really do hope that he gets the chance to do more of this because he did really thrive in this.
Well, yeah, they'll surprise you. He's like it's like when Adam Sandler does a
Well, Uncut
serious
Gems,
movie.
look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming
Uncut
out.
Gem, or like Punch Drunk Love is incredible.
Oh yeah, I love that
It's
movie.
a Paul
I love
Thomas
that movie.
Anderson movie, you know?
I love that movie. But that's the
Yeah.
thing, like you would never think that they have the chops to do that, but the moment you give them a chance, all of a sudden they surprise you. Their comedy, everybody's torn. It's whatever you like, but all of a sudden they do a serious role, and you're like, God damn, I didn't know they had this in them to do.
Yeah.
And when they do these serious roles, they bring like their comedy to it.
Yes.
Well, like like I mean, it's kind of like it's getting better now in media of breaking that barrier of a comedian crossing over into it. I mean, you have like people that have been able to break through, like Jim Carrey with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and
That one's
those
also
kind
really
of
good.
movies, and just like hopefully we'll see a lot more of that. Not just for comedians going into the dramedy, but also dramedy taking actors going into comedy. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Like I think it shows what it allows an actor to thrive is to go into these different genres and hopefully doing that we could get a lot more
Mhm.
diversity in actors and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's another thing.
Yeah.
So do you guys have any final thoughts to add to this? Should we get some final recommendations? Do you recommend this? And
Oh yeah, I would surely recommend this movie, especially to anyone who deals with anxiety or depression, or has any self-harm thoughts. Like this movie is a great movie.
or show it to somebody know that is dealing with that. It might provide them with some levity in their situation, just a little bit at least.
Yeah. And it makes watching something like this makes you feel like like this is something that other people go through. You're not alone. So
Yeah, I agree
Alan?
with that. I mean, yeah, I think just to backtrack a little bit, but I think when it came out, yeah, it probably wasn't a big hit because, like Fred said, Zach Galifianakis, and then people go, oh, it might be too much of a comedy like that, or you see Emma Roberts and don't know Craig's real name, but to them, so they say, oh, it's gonna be like a teen romance thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think if it had come out like 5-6 years later, right when like what are all those John Green books and adaptations and like YA just getting huge in the teens, I think it would have been a way bigger hit because like I feel like a lot of those novels now, those YA novels, deal with stuff like that as well. But yeah, it probably could have been a lot bigger. But yeah, I would recommend it, especially for young and old, because you can see it from both sides. You have Zach Galifianakis' character going through something, and then the Craig's character as well. And then also, I mean, hey, any teachers out there, you feel like this is going to be good for your curriculum, I'd say show it, because as soon as I finish it, I'm like, I can totally see something that could be analyzed in class and
I mean, I could
definitely
see
looked at.
I could see a psychologist teacher do it. I don't know about
like
a high school psychologist
yeah,
teacher,
okay,
or
because I was gonna say like no every other class I don't know about that. That's hits with some heavy subjects.
economics. I'm gonna show you this.
That's exactly, because this is gonna destroy your life. Learning economics.
Like he said, there's a scene where he goes,